Hey, hello, and welcome to the Community Affairs Committee Leadership Webinar. My name is Anne-Marie Queenie, and I am the CAC Chair. Today, Erin Galilee, STC Director of Membership and Community Relations, will present 2020 STC Community Reports Review. This webinar will be recorded and will be made available to you within a week. Also, you're welcome to ask questions, but to ensure that Erin completes all the information she wanted to tell us today, I'll be watching the panel, the questions panel, and then we'll just hold the questions to the end. And everyone will be muted at this point. So Erin, it's my pleasure to turn the webinar over to Erin Galilee. I'm sure most of you know who she is, but if you don't, she's a tremendous treasure of STC and is always willing to help. And so we're very happy that you've taken the time today to tell us about this important tool. And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. That's very kind. And thank you to all of you for joining us today for this timely topic while we review our community reports. Timely in the sense that it's at the end of we're at the end of our 2020 membership season, so we're in the midst of membership renewal, and also we're wanting to boost our numbers, and so we're looking for those new prospects, and it's always a good time at the beginning of the year, the beginning of a calendar year, to bring new recruits in. That'll give them the largest amount of time for their membership season, and so it's just a very active membership time at STC and within the communities. So in my time here, I haven't known of a webinar where we talked about community reports. I've definitely talked through this topic one-on-one with different community leaders throughout my time here, and Anne-Marie and I were talking about different topics that we could do a webinar on, and fell on this one, and that it was information that we had that maybe some people who are familiar with the community reports but may not know all that it can do for your community, your chapter, your SIG, or perhaps you're a brand new community leader and have heard of it, or maybe have not heard of it at all, of what the reports are and what they can do. And this is just a good point for you to learn. So we definitely want to provide this information to you, and it's going to be a very broad conversation today, just to give you a basic understanding of what they are, what they can do, and just some additional information about STC membership, so you all are empowered as you begin your recruitment efforts within your own communities. So again, my name is Erin Galilee. I'm the Director of Membership and Community Relations here at STC. Just to give you a little bit of a background about me, I have been on staff at STC since late summer of 2016. I came in as a membership manager, and I moved up to the director position, and in February, I guess about a year ago, I began to take on community responsibilities. Many of you had worked with Elaine Gillum before, and she is definitely still on staff and is a resource for me and for the communities. But it was just a shifting of duties that aligned just topics of interest more within the correct departments, because it was shifted out of the membership department, and so we shifted it back because it just seemed to be a more logical fit, since I worked with many of the community leaders in any case, even before I was given the duties of community relations director. And I've been in that official capacity working with the CAC since just February this year. So it's been a great pleasure getting to work with most of you in regards to your communities and those needs. And I look forward to continuing that relationship. And this one tool, I think, will definitely help us moving forward in just what you can do to help your chapters. I know I've been approached by many community leaders of just what can you do to raise your numbers, what can you do to get an idea of a picture of who your membership is. And I think some of these community reports will answer these questions. So let's get started on the community reports review. So what are we going to cover today? Just the basics, what they are, where to find them, who has access to them, who can use them, how can perhaps a community use these reports in just other ways of just a basic roster. And then I wanted to empower you with some information just about STC membership. I know some of you know about our membership and our categories, but others may not be so familiar or so sure. So I want to make sure that you are equipped with just some basic information about STC membership, so that when you're encountering your members in your events, that you are empowered a little bit with information, just basic tools that you can use so that you can have those conversations with them before you can refer them to me. Okay, so what are our community reports? In a nutshell, the community reports are 4 reports that are located on the STC site for community leadership and other members that are appointed to be given access to use for basic membership tracking, recruitment, basically just lists about your groups. The 4 reports that are there are: 1, your current roster, recently lapsed members of the community, recently lapsed members of STC and your community, and STC members that are not in the community at all. And this is a different way to search. And we'll go into all of these 4 reports in a little bit more detail in further slides, but this is just in a nutshell what those 4 reports are that we have available to you. So where are they? Some people know that we have reports and they don't know where they are, or they don't even know that they exist at all. So where they're located is on our website. I gave you this picture so you can use these slides for exact reference of where they are. But basically it's on our main, if you're on our main homepage, if you hover your mouse over the Member Center tab, it'll give you a drop-down box. And that second column that starts with resources is where you're headed. And then you'll see about almost to the bottom a link that says community reports. If you are already logged in, it'll take you right to the community reports. If you're not, it's going to prompt you for a login screen first, of course. And then it's going to take you to this page. Now, I am logged in and I have access to all the community reports. So you see this whole laundry list of communities that are available. You will see the ones that you are given, that you have access to. So you may only see one, or if you have access to more than one community, because on these reports, you'll see those listed there. So how do you use these reports? What are we looking for when we say we have these reports? Okay, they're there. What can I use them for? Well, basic member information, their contact information if you're looking to pull emails or you're going to do a mailing, just trying to see where people are. There's lots of information about the members in there. If you're wanting to know just basic numbers, if you're looking to provide updates, if you're wanting to send out emails to your staff, not your staff, to your members, letting them know new benefits or just communication. This is just an idea this is a list that you can use just to pull who your current members are. Use it for recruitment, for community activities. I know I'll talk about that in a minute. It's a way that you can recruit new members. You can find out who are new, who have lapsed. You can get statistics. I sometimes get questions of how many students do we have? How many different types of, different categories of memberships do we have, just so we can see who makes up our membership in our chapter or SIG. This is a way that you could easily pull it and sort it, and it'll give you some of that basic statistical information that you're looking for. And also it'll let you know how your members want to be communicated to. So it'll give you some communication preferences that members give us overall about how they want to receive emails. There are certain things that members will always get, like transactional stuff, but there are ways that members can communicate different preferences of how they want to be reached out to, that I'll go into a little bit later as well. And then there's there's more information that is out there. These reports don't just live on the site. You can export them in lots of different ways. I usually export it in Excel and can slice and dice it in whatever way I need to. This is what we use for our STC annual budgeting. So for those who are involved in the STC budgeting process, our SIG COPs and our chapters are in the midst of that right now. The current roster is what I pull to give that number that informs your financial report, so that when you prepare your budget, that's what the number is based off of. So these reports are used internally and by you guys as well. So it's It's very valuable information that we have, and we're all working off of the same documents. So that's a good thing. Now, who has access? Not the public. So those first initial screens that you see, where like on the home page, where you see the resources tab and the community reports link, the public will see that. That's static on our site. But if they hit the community reports and they don't have access to the reports, they're not going to see anything on the reports itself. And just because they're a member of a community, that doesn't mean they're going to see the reports themselves either. So access is only specifically given through a tag on your record that I place that's in the STC database. So it's important that, so that's one of the reasons why we ask for your rosters. One, so that we know who your leadership rosters is what I mean. So it's important that we know who your current leadership is of your organization, just so we know who we're communicating to. But also when I get those leadership rosters after your elections, I usually give those permissions to your chapter president, your SIG managers, or facilitators, your treasurers. If you give me a membership manager, I'll give them access to these reports. And I have access to every report. And Anne-Marie has access to some of these reports as well. She doesn't have all of them, but she handles, if there's some issue that she's working with, I'll give her access to some of these community reports just so she has access to the roster as she's working with you. And that's not a problem. But I did a question mark because there are others who may need to have it too. These are just our instinctual people that we give access to. We definitely don't want to make it too broad because it is private confidential information. But we understand that every group is different. And so the needs of who may need to have access to this also maybe need taken into account, which we're definitely flexible with issuing access to those who need it. So I just answered my own question, but can anyone else have access? Yes, but we do ask that you consider the need for that person to have access because of the confidential information for your chapter and for members. And also keep in mind that if you may have, a couple people working on a special project, you may not need to give them full access to the reports. You may just be able to provide them with a report. And that sometimes could be preferred because then you can kind of clean out some of the data that they don't need. Like if they're just doing an email campaign, we don't need to put out the whole list with the full contact information and all of that. You can give them a cleaner data just to send for a specific project. But if it's needed, we definitely can be flexible with the access that we give for a long-term basis if they're working throughout the year on specific projects or just for a period of time. Some people may not have different types of categories. Not everybody is the same. Some chapters have, full boards and they have lots of volunteers and, fill up education managers and membership managers, but other people may not. And so that's okay. It depends who is doing the work, and that is the most important thing. So other people to consider is to give access to is maybe an education manager that takes the place of both, or if you have a social media manager or web manager, just so they're tracking who may need access to, your different social media pages or email lists and things like that. But the one thing that is most important is that those who have access must be an STC member and a community member. Simply just because of the confidentiality of the information, we don't really want to give out member information for specifically those who aren't members of STC as a whole. We want to protect that data, but also if they're working with your community, if we want to make sure that we want to make sure that they have the information of the community members as they need to. And again, if there are people working on specific needs, and that may be some specific projects or needs, that may be something that you may provide them a cleaner report, a scrubbed report for something that they specifically need if they're working on a project. But we do prefer that everybody be an STC member. I can't give access if they're not in our database. So that's just a main consideration. But this is where I wanted to mention something earlier. Some people use the listservs, and that's okay. And I know there's an audit happening right now about our listservs with our technology task force. And sometimes these reports, these rosters will be good to check against your listservs, because depending on how the listservs are maintained, new people may need to be added. People may need to be taken off if they're on the listservs, but not on, depending on what you're sending out through their member benefits and such. So it's just, the reports that we'll have will be completely tied to our database of current members. So it just is maybe a resource of how you clean some of your other lists that we have, just to see who is now a prospect or someone who's lapsed, and just how we communicate to our members. Okay, so what is on the reports? As you can see, it's just a lot of basic contact information. You have your basic ID number, member type, and the grade, which I'll go into. There's a little bit different, but this is basically their membership category. And then if they have achieved a certain level, the membership grade is if they've achieved a certain level of award of honor. So if they're a fellow, if they're an associate fellow, if they're a senior member, that will be noted. And then their basic contact information, of course, their name, company, where they work, email, address. And this is the information that's given is what the member has given as their preferred address. So that's also something we take into consideration. Their STC join date, and this date is actually the date that they joined STC first. So it's not an annual join date, it's when they joined first. This is their pay through date of just when they're current, when their membership is due. And these are the communication preferences that I mentioned, where it says no STC email, no society campaign email, no mail, no chapter email. These are ones that I'll show you what they mean on the list. I'll have a visual for you. But this is just basically saying that these people have requested not to receive certain types of communication from us, and we need to keep that in mind as we're communicating with our members. Maybe something that you need to update within your social media or your whoever is responsible for emails and such, of just either double checking that information to make sure that they don't want to receive, maybe a different ask that you may touch base with these people. But that was something that they listed in their STC communication preferences that is in their profile as a part of their main record. So it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so the first report, the current roster. So once you logged in and you're given your, back on that one page where you were logged in and you see your list of all the groups that you're connected to, you would make your selection in this, please select your community, and then you would click find. And if you keep the tab, the first tab, you'll see current roster. So this is going to give you your current members of your community. And the current members of your community right now will be for 2020 and for 2021. So one of the main things that I'll talk a little bit more in a bit as well as we go into more STC membership, but your lists are going to maintain both for the current time being until we drop our 2020 members, which the grace period ends on January 31st. So your list that you run on December, this month, will be different than the one you run in February. Your numbers will be smaller, and that's just because 2020 people have not yet renewed. But that's okay, because this goes into the second bullet, where we recommend monthly pulls and reviews of your lists just to see who's there and who's current, who may be due to renew. This is a good check for your community leadership to make sure all of your leaders have their memberships up to date. The prominent people in your community may be working on projects or in positions of authority. That just a reminder that those people are with you and that they may need to renew their memberships for 2021. Have those conversations. If people are experiencing trouble or need, you can refer them to the STC office. We'll talk to anybody about that. We don't want that to be a prohibitive thing of people joining a STC or a chapter. Or no, we'll definitely work with folks. But we definitely want to let people know. And some of the most common questions about that we get when benefits have canceled is when they can't get access to things is, oh, I didn't even know I lapsed. So they're okay conversations to have. It happens all the time, but this will just let you keep tabs on your community, who's current, who may need to renew, and just what the conversations you may need to have with these folks. It's an easy way just to say, it's the end of the membership season, join us in 2021. And this is just also a good list to check against any emails and, email marketing materials that you have, if you have Constant Contact or MailChimp, just to make sure everybody current is on your list, so they're getting communications from the chapter and the SIG for any benefits that you're or access or information that you're putting out there. As I said, we recommend that you pull this probably about monthly, just so you can keep it and review it and just maintain it. This lets you, again, like I just said, you can track all your renewals. And we pull this specific report on the 31st. So this is the one that we use to pull your budget numbers for funding for the budget committee. So that's why it's good that you also pull this report, because that way the more members that are on your report, of course, the better the number it is, and that affects your funding. So we want to make sure that everybody who should be on your budget report, and then that funding number should be there. So if it's tracked and we're tracking and you're tracking, then we have less likely of a fact of there being discrepancies in your number. So it's important, especially also around budget season, that you know where you're standing so that we have an accurate count for your end of year budget for this one report. Okay, so the second report is community members not renewed. And this is somebody who is a current member of STC, but they haven't yet renewed for your chapter or your SIG. And what this means is, as of right now, because the current roster is for 2020 and 2021, that these are community members who are current, but so in 2020 and 2021, but haven't come in, they have not renewed for your chapter or your SIG. So you would access the report in the same way you'd select your community, click find, and have the second tab, on the second tab selected. And it's going to give you a report of just names of people. And this is a little, one report is a little bit more complicated, and often this is where we catch people who may have missed their membership renewal for the community, as they have maybe perhaps renewed their membership and something happened and it was missed. So we do recommend that this is a good monthly pool or review as well, simply because it could have been accidental. Somebody goes through the membership process and they might have forgotten to select their chapter or your SIG, but you're seeing them at all the events they're involved. You know, they may be a manager or a chapter or a leader, and you know, that's what they meant to do. And then we can fix that as quickly as possible so we can get them in. Some people, they may not know how to join their community. So they may have lapsed because as they went through, they got confused, or it was, we get that too, where they weren't quite sure how to sign up for the community. Is it automatic? Is it not? If they had especially been there previously, or if maybe you're talking to somebody who is new, brand new, and you've recruited them and you encouraged STC membership and they went through the process and you see them as a member but not as a community member, it may be that they got confused with the process, and we can help them out there as well. And some of these people are your easiest asks because most of them are probably still very active in your community. And they're right there, and the earlier we know, the better chance we have of just having the conversation to bring them in. There are free allotments for some of our membership categories, and that I think is sometimes where there's confusion, because there's not a financial reflection in the cart, that sometimes, you know, if it might have been accidentally omitted, it isn't caught until a little bit later. So, and that's okay, because they're free, they're very easy for me to add on. It usually only takes me a minute or two, so we can get it fixed as quickly as we can. And on the other side, this also lets you know who left your community intentionally. So that gives you the ability to maybe do some surveys, to maybe do some outreach to see why they left, if it was because they moved or geographic, you know, something geographic, or they've left the industry, just so you can gather some information of why a person left, so we can kind of work together, the chapters in STC, about just gathering information of why somebody left and maybe what they're looking for. It could be that if they moved somewhere else, we could recommend a new chapter for them, and it's just, you know, yours isn't the one closest anymore, but somebody else, you know, another group, or they've changed their interest for those who are in SIGs, and maybe we can recommend a different topic of interest for them to get plugged into. So it may just change your community, but it may help other communities, just knowing what their options are. And also just to get an idea of just, you know, why people leave and what they're looking for. It's always a good thing to get more information from our folks, but it just gives us that time when it's the sooner it happens, the better the outcome of information when we ask usually happens. So I know at STC we try to do surveys pretty frequently, at least annually, but we're trying to do them more frequently just to gather this type of data, because that just helps us improve. Okay, so the third report is labeled STC Members Not Renewed. Now, these are basically members who have lapsed with STC and your community and are not yet renewed for this year. So as I mentioned, the reports are now reflecting 2020 and 2021. So on this report, you'll see people for 2019. So since 2020s are still currently on the current roster. I know it's a little bit confusing, but these will all shift after the budget, after the benefit grace period changes on January 31st. So then it'll just be a singular year for most of the year. It's just in the fall where it gets a little confusing. So these are 2019 people who have lapsed and who have not yet come back to STC and did not renew for your community. And that's okay. Again, sometimes these are people who are still active, very active in the community, and they may not have realized that they've lapsed. It has happened from community leadership, you know, all the way down. So sometimes people just are unaware of our membership cycle and just when they renewed, and they're taking the date that they renewed as their point instead of a calendar year. So they might not be aware that they lapsed. And this is just an opportunity to be able to reach out to some of those people just to bring them back. It could be, again, an error in their membership activation and their renewal. They might have just forgotten. They might have been unclear of how to join or to join the community, and that's where we can step in. They could still be present at your community events, in your community as leadership. And so it just must be something that can just be checked to make sure everybody is in alignment and have their memberships up to date. So when the grace period ends, these will be our 2020 folks. So if they haven't renewed for STC or the community, if they haven't come in for 2021, they'll be in this bucket. And again, these are also people, since they're 2019, they haven't lapsed for very long. So these could be people you can also survey, you can also do outreach to bring them back to see what they're looking for. Maybe they just need that invitation. So it's just a good way that you can use these reports in different ways. It just may be a slightly different ask because you know that someone who hasn't come in for 2020 and or 2021, so they would just sign up now for 2021. 2020 would be a wash, and that's okay. We'll take them back, but we can just bring them back in a different way or just have these conversations. These folks have not been gone for very long. STC definitely reaches out to these types of members often. Any of our newsletters that you see, that you receive from us, just STC's main monthly newsletter, they go to these folks. But having the additional ask from the community, since some of your relationships with the members can sometimes be closer or different just because of your events are a little bit different and your group is a little bit smaller, that may make the difference in coming them back. A lot of people value their communities, their chapters, and their SIGs, and sometimes those relationships can help make the difference. So if we're asking and you're asking, that may help to get some people recruited back who may have either not realized that they've lapsed or just may have some follow-up questions where we can help them answer them and bring them back in. Okay, and this last report is a little bit more confusing, but it's actually a pretty powerful report in my opinion. And this is current STC members that have not been a member of your community for more than one membership year or not at all. So this would be someone, oh, and the search is by geographic, by state or by province. So again, you would log in the same way. You would be on the community reports page, selecting that fourth tab and select your group. And you would select your state instead of your group, and then you click find. And this is a statewide search. So this allows you to pull a list of people who are STC members, they're current, so 2020, 2021, but they've never been a member of your community or of a community, or they've lapsed in a community for their more than one membership year, so it would be 2018 back. So the list prior, the list 3, that was 2019. So this would be 2018 and back. So they might not have been a member of a chapter or a SIG for a period of time, or they may not have ever been a member of a community. So these are kind of fresh people. So you could pull all of a particular state, and I know some of our chapters have gone more statewide, such as Michigan and Ohio recently. This may just be a chance to make sure you've reached out to everybody and see who is a part of your membership and who is not, and how you can do an outreach to them just to see who geographically is in your state. I've heard over and over, and I know Anne-Marie has too, just from people And even talking to some of you where your experiences are, well, I was plugged into STC, but I just didn't know there was a community, or I didn't know what a community was. And we try to promote communities and our chapters and SIGs as much as we can. But this may be just an easy way that you can get some prospecting. And some of the lists may not be very large, but they can be a way that you can start to have relationships. And again, not knowing who those people know, it could be the start of bigger relationships and broader relationships as word talks of just the opportunities that you have. And you can even use this. I mean, I know in some cities, in some states, there is more than one community or chapter in a state. Like New York, there's multiple, there's 3, so at least. So pulling all of New York would be a little bit more confusing, but there are some shared resources and some shared people. And so you can also take this list, and since there's a lot of content information, you might be able to sort by city and narrow it down a little bit more. Again, you might pull a couple of states. So if you're New York Metro, you might not only pull New York, you may pull New Jersey, or you may, Philadelphia may pull New Jersey. It's just wherever you are, Washington, DC, Baltimore, you may pull, Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia, and just kind of see who's out there so you can get your kind of broadest ask. And it could just also be a curiosity thing. Of course, for your SIGs, you may just be curious if you know certain members or in a certain area of in your SIG as you're pulling your current roster. You may pull similar, look at this and pull other people similar to your region where you have a bunch of members. Maybe you just missed, a certain region, that maybe it's a tech area that you're trying to reach of a certain topic of interest that you have. You may be looking for, if you're an academic SIG, you may be looking at cities where there are schools and looking for academics, in this way. So you could use it in different ways. For big schools or different groups. So you can kind of slice and dice it in different ways, whether you're a chapter or a SIG, just to grow your membership. And this may just give you some prospecting, or to bring older members back who may have moved, who may have changed their mind, and you may be able to promote, new changes and new opportunities that will bring them back. But they all are STC members. So these people are already in the fold. It's just the ask to get them to be in your community. It's just an opportunity for you there. Okay, so this, we recommend that you pull this. It's as you prospect, but I think it's good to do even at least quarterly, just to see who pops in. We get new members all the time. So I think it's good if you keep this on your constant mind, even to add to some of your prospect emails that you do, or specifically ask them if you have certain events happening, just to invite people to those things. It's just this opportunity to give you even just a handful of new folks. You never know, again, who they know, who their connections are. It may broaden your group if they spread word of who you are and the activity that's out there. So it's just good to know. And sometimes it's people who don't even know that we're there, and it gives you guys a more powerful boots on the ground type of a thing in your own neighborhood, geographic area, of just people you can reach out to bring them into your chapters or your SIGs virtually. And again, if there are names that you recognize, because some of you may be long-term community leaders, you may look at these lists and say, oh, I know these people, I know that. And it may start conversations to bring them back, because they may be people who are longer-term members, and they may not realize that they have lapsed or they left for a certain reason, and you may be able to recruit them and bring them back, and bring back their expertise if they have been a valuable member of your community in the past. Lots of different opportunities for outreach. Okay, so what does a report look like? Most of the reports just spit out this. It's just data. So I've blacked out names and emails, and between the first and the second line, the email box would be the same thing. I just want to do a start and an end. So it's just one long Excel spreadsheet that I took, and this is how you could slice and dice it in lots of different ways. So you can see, it's a lot of personal information about the individuals, with their addresses, their email addresses, their city and states, and then you can see the paid through dates and the join dates. So it's just giving you some basic information. Those last 6 or so boxes are the communication preferences, which I'll go into in just a minute. But it'll all appear on the same report, so there isn't anywhere else you need to go. One thing that's interesting, and all the reports should spit out pretty much the same thing. It should be the same report. So you're not getting different data in different reports. It's just knowing the report that you're pulling, so you know it's slightly different data. If that makes sense. So the one thing that I wanted to point out here, which I'm going to talk about now, is the second and the third column where it's membership type and the grade. So I get questions about this of what these things are. And these abbreviations are actually our membership categories of how it's abbreviated within our database. And then the grade is, as I mentioned earlier, like associate fellow, senior members, anything like that will be noted here. And this is important to know just because this is how you can sort your data so that you can see how many gold members do you have, how many students do you have, just so you can see the different ratio of types and categories. You can do that for any of the categories just to see, where people geographically are, or you can see how many, fellows or associate fellows that you have. It's just, you can alter this list in any way that you would like, but there's a lot of data here that you can use. So I've given you this as a cheat sheet just because I know many of you know about our membership, but you may not know enough to feel empowered to talk about it. So I want to be able to give you a sheet that you can use and access to do that very thing. So when people purchase our membership, there are different categories that they can select, and there are allotments of communities that certain groups get for free. So our basic category, professional and academic, there's no free allotment. They pay for their communities. Their abbreviation is here. Gold get 1 free chapter and any SIG for free. New professionals are the same as professional academic. There's no free allotment. They pay for their communities. Students get 1 free chapter. They have student chapter. They get specifically the academic SIG and 1 additional SIG. Retires get a chapter and a SIG for free. Corporate value, if you see CVPI, they're the same as professional and academic. These CVPs are teams of people that join STC as a group. So it's usually groups of 5 or more. So they're the same as professional and academic, but they're usually people who are part of a larger team. So that's good to know just because, they have others in their group that the ask is just greater. Sustaining, this is new. This is a life membership. Well, I guess it's 15 years worth of membership that somebody can pay for. They get any chapter or SIG for free. You'll see the MSI, MSC. And some people have asked what this comp was. And we have retired fellows who have had a lifetime of service for us. And when they retire, we comp their memberships for the remainder of their life. And they receive the same as the retired, where they get a chapter and a SIG for free. And some are involved, but some are not. But this is just their way that they can stay connected to us. And anyone outside of their free allotment, these are the fees for chapters and SIGs. So if someone, say, was a member of your organization and a member of STC and they wanted to join your chapter, it would be just $25 to add on. Or if it's a SIG, it would be $10 if it's a COI, $15 if it's a COP. So sometimes it's nominal just to ask for, just to let people know what those charges would be. Anybody who is already a member who wants to add on a chapter or a SIG, they can't do it online. I'm trying to find a way to implement that so it can be done online, but currently they just need to let me know. So either by an email or a call to me and I can easily add it on. But this is just a page I wanted to give to you to let you know what those abbreviations mean, but also what our categories are and what the allotments are for communities, just so you're empowered to talk to folks at your events online or in person once that begins again. The other abbreviations that you'll see, again, as I mentioned, the associate fellow, certified is on there. There's a couple people that are certified that's going to be more widely used once we're going to build a certification module, and it'll let you know who's certified as a CPTC technical communicator, so that'll be good. And then senior members, those are just people who have been a member for 5 years or more. And that just shows longevity of service. So those different things, you may be looking to nominate people for awards, or you're looking for people in certain positions, and these may dictate some of the decisions that you make of just who you have as a part of your membership base as your chapter or SIG. And this link will just give you more information about the 2 programs for Associate Fellow and Fellow Honors here. So now I wanted to bring up communication purposes that we brought, and these are the 5 that we have. Now, you saw on the spreadsheet that it basically says true. And if it says true, that means that that person is electing not to receive information. So it's true that I do not want STC email. I do not want a mailing. So we are respectful for that at STC. We try to keep those communication purposes in check. Like we said, there are certain things that they will always receive from us, and that may be true also in your chapter. Certain types of emails may be outside of communication purposes. And you may also want to double check if you see somebody who says no chapter emails, but that's how you communicate mainly with your membership. You may want to do that double check just to ask. But this is just what they have specified on their STC account, so it may be worth a follow-up. Or if they say, yes, I definitely don't want chapter emails, that they're put into your whatever email system that you have, or mailing system, if you do mail campaigns, of just how you track that so you can take people off so they're not getting information they don't request. And this is how it just looks on the spreadsheet itself, where you'll see the true. And then this will, of course, is the whole thing, but this is just a snapshot of just this one area. So just to briefly talk about the STC membership cycle, we operate on a calendar year cycle, January through December. We do prorate, usually starting in the spring, not for communities, just for STC dues. And we offer a grace period up until January 31st. So those who joined anywhere from January 31st to August, their membership will be good through January 31st of next year. And we have to turn that off due to the elections and just internal ruling that we have about our membership cycles here. But we do extend it through January 31st. And we also open our membership season in the fall, each fall. So September 1st of 2020, we opened for the 2021 membership season. That's to let people who need an invoice for their companies to pay on a net 30, net 60, they have time to do that. It also allows people to renew before they expire. There's a couple of reasons. And then for anyone who's a join, they would still pay for all of 2021, and they just get whatever's left in 2020 for free after September 1st. So if you're seeing promotions that say, 13 months of membership for the cost of 12, 14 months membership for the cost of 12, that's what that is. It's usually our prospects, and it's just offering people that additional time in the fall for free. And usually people don't mind paying the full rate of dues when they're getting additional time. So just some basic things to remember, that these reports are not perfect. There's a lot of good information in them, but mistakes are made and they do happen. And if you see something strange on any of your reports, please let me know. The earlier we know of a problem, the better. It could be something that's about an individual report, but it also could be something that is about the report in general. They do sometimes get wonky and they've had to be fixed on the back end by our database administrator. So if you see something odd, just send me a quick note and I'll see what we can do to fix it, because it may be something that everybody's experiencing. And if you have a good idea, please share. I mean, we don't assume at STC that we have the answers to everything. We definitely don't. We rely on you guys for a lot. And so if you have an idea or a thought about something, it may not be something that could be implemented right away, but it may be something that we grow towards, which is always a good thing. So let us know if you have a good idea about different reports. Also, the data is live, so we recommend pulling frequently because the information changes. A person drops off, especially at the end of the year, where 2020 to 2021, during that grace period, your list is going to shift. So it's good to pull those reports before they go into different, before they get refinagled. So just making sure you have all the information that you need as it's captured in that moment. You can pull a report, a week apart, and it could be slightly different. We're always happy to help with any member report questions. Sometimes the issues on reports, as I said, it may be a form related question overall, but it also may be very specific. Like, this person isn't on my report and I'm not sure why. And they said they registered for something specific. That I would just need to look at and research, and usually I can find the answer pretty quickly. Sometimes they're more involved if they turn out to be something technological, but for the most part, it's a case by case, and it usually can be fixed pretty quickly, but they are individual. So just reach out, and it's usually something we can figure out pretty quickly. So this is what I wanted to bring up. It was shared with me by Erin, but it didn't even start with her. She had received this from a different community, and basically she has a macro that allows her to take two similar lists and put them in this macro, and it'll kind of do the work for her to say who dropped off this list and who is new. So It's an interesting tool, and it's just like this. So basically what you do is if you pulled a roster, say 2 months ago, and you pull the current roster, you can pin both of the rosters into the top and then hit compare rosters, and it'll tell you who, if anybody dropped off, so if anybody left your chapter, or say it was membership season ending the end of the grace period you did this February 1st, you can see who dropped off. You can also see who's brand new, so you can add those to your prospects, you can add them to your listservs, you can add them to your emails, email lists, so you can just make sure you're adding new people if you need to reach out to them, if you're sending new member letters. So this is just a tool, and we're going to go ahead and share this with you as a macro. I'll send it with this presentation, just so you can use it with instructions, with more detailed instructions, of course. It's just a tool, and one of the things that Anne-Marie and I were talking is, because even Marcia Shannon had sent me a note saying that she had a different tool as well. If you have idea, I know some of you have been working with these reports, and some of them have been working with them for years. If you have tips and tricks, please share them with me. And what we're thinking is that this may be a good opportunity for us to kind of share those different tips and tricks, because I know that there's information out there. I know that you guys are currently the ones using the lists. So this may be a good opportunity to share some workarounds or fixes that you have that you can share with other folks that will make their lives easier as they're pulling lists and crunching data, especially our new facilitators who are new. But this is just one, so we did want to mention it here, that there are tips and tricks like this out there, and any that I receive, I'll definitely forward on. And if we get a few, then we can actually maybe even do, a program just sharing ideas or thoughts. So that is basically me and my report on community reports. I'm sorry, I know it was a lot of information, but that's why this is recorded. So you can go back and reference, and you'll definitely get copies of the slides. And I was trying to design the slides in such a way that you could even print them off and use them as a resource, that you can kind of figure it out even as you were, if you were just using it, if you weren't even listening to my recording, you could use it as the slides itself to try to figure out reports and where things were and such. So, but if you have any questions, please never hesitate to contact me. I'm your main point of contact for most membership questions anyway. If you call the main line, you're reaching me. If you're sending anything to me personally or to membership, stc@stc.org. If it's general questions, they'll make it to me. Communities, if you're not sure if it's me or communities questions, you can always send something to Anne-Marie as well. And if it's something that helps me, we'll work on it together. This is a slide of just where you can find me. And now I'll open it up to some questions to see if anything came in.
Yes, we've had a few here. So
I figured.
I'm yeah, the good ones. So I'm just scrolling through, and I guess I'll start with, I think it was Christine, and she says, "Is there a way to run a report for a certain date? For example, can I run a report for November 1st to see our members as of that date?" So I guess she's thinking like in the past.
Unfortunately, okay, yes, thank you. Unfortunately, the data is live, so it will change. However, you can pull the list and you can maybe sort it. You might be able to sort it in such a way. I might be able to help. This may be an individual question, but I might be able to help with giving join dates. It's one thing about the report that's a little bit confusing is I can't get the transaction date, which would make life a lot easier on this report of the date you purchased, because it's just an internal thing within our database of mixing types of buckets. Basically, the data is put in, but it's one that's out there. So if I can fix that problem, so it can be a date thing, you can easily just sort by that. I can let you know, but I can also give you the data in a different way, so we can get it as close as we can. How about that? So send me a note to membership@stc.org, and if you need something from November, just let me know, and we can kind of we might finagle it together.
Okay, here's a second question, and says, how soon after a member makes an update, for example, renews, changes email address, or changes communication preferences, are these updates reflected in the community report? For example, every 24 hours, every 48 hours?
Anything that's a communication preference, those things should be pretty instant. Like, it should reflect pretty quickly. If I sometimes if someone joins, are just accounting, it usually takes overnight for their memberships to hit in our system of business day. So if someone recently joins, if they join today, they might not show up on your community report until tomorrow. But if someone reflects a change in their email, you should see that change pretty quickly. So it would just be the transaction side. If someone came in or made an adjustment, that may take a little bit of time. But usually if I know that you're waiting for something and if you're letting me know, then I can push something through and it'll show up a little bit quicker. But it's just a posting of our accounting in our database. So that's the one thing we're dealing with for transactions. But anything else should be immediate.
Okay. And now I'm just looking through, and someone has let's see. These are two no mail questions, so I'll put these together. Kelly's asked, some users on my current member roster have no mail set, but they also have one or more other types of mail allowed. Does that mean they allow those types of mail, or does no mail really mean no mail? And then Lori asked, what does no mail mean in communication preferences? So I'll kind of put those two together.
The way that we see no mail is we just do not include them in any mailings that we have outside of, there are certain things with business that we will always put out, like transactional stuff in regards, like we just consider mail. We don't do that many mailing campaigns, but if it says no mail, we usually do no mail. I mean, you can always send a note to those folks to clarify if someone has conflicting communication preferences, where some say no mail, some say this is okay for mail, like they do a true for no mail, but they do a false, they leave no chapter, mail open. I'm just guessing. That may be something to say you selected this, and that may be that they actually meant no STC mail, but they're fine with chapter mail. So we may just need to go back to those specific people to clarify. But usually for us, if it's no mail, we personally at STC do no mail, but at all. We just don't include them in mailing campaigns. But we usually encourage people to check their communication preferences. Send them a note a couple times a year just to double check it's the way that they want. So that's how we qualify it, but it can be followed up with.
All right. And then Laura asks, and this might be one of those things where you talked about the overlapping information. Laura has, how do you measure recently lapsed members? I saw my name on there, even though I am a 2020 member and am already renewed for 2021. This might be something to follow up separately, or I don't know if you want to answer.
Just due to the confidentiality of just your record. If you don't mind, just send me a note to membership and I'll specify, because I need to look this up in the database just to see exactly what's happening. It might be that it was just a community that wasn't selected. We'll just need to look a little bit more closely to see what might have happened, but specifics of a particular person, that it just is a little bit, it requires a little bit more investigation, because sometimes these are case-by-case questions. But I'm happy to look that up. That falls into that bucket. So we'll follow up offline.
Okay. All right. And then this is just a general question then. And Karen's asked, what is being done about the incorrect info in reports, especially lapsed members? So that, I guess, is a tie-in, but that's a general question.
Well, a lot of the data is correct. We go through, I just did a review last month with our database administrator that the information is correct. How it's pulling. So if you see anomalies, if something isn't working correctly, if you are seeing that there are people who may not be in the right spot, sometimes when we're looking through, those people may not have renewed or something were to happen. So unless I have specifics, it's hard to say, but we do review the reports multiple times a year to make sure they're working. I just did one in November just a couple weeks ago to make sure everything was pulling right into review, to make sure all the dates were correct. So at the end of the year, for these end of year reports, they're right. And around budget season, just to check to make sure everything was right when we pulled reports for that. So I did it at the end of summer as well. So if there are specific cases reach out, let me know. But we do diligently go through just to double check the data to make sure it's all pulling correctly. But if there's something that's not working, it's not above the realm that something could be happening. So let us know.
Okay, and right now I do see it, excuse me, that it's 4:02, and we do have some other questions, but I'll see if I can, we'll make a copy of them. And for those of you who we haven't responded back, perhaps we can answer by email. I don't know if people can continue because it is after the hour. But we got to most of them.
Okay. Okay, we'll make a copy, and for those, yeah, we didn't go through, we'll definitely.
Because I just saw some suggestions. But we'll do one quick one. I think we can answer this. How should members pay for adding a community? Do they need to call in a credit card number, for example?
Yes, they can. Well, yes. So they could. There are different options of how they would pay for a community if they're looking to add that on. We can accept a credit card. We can accept a check if they want to mail it to us. That'll take a little bit longer, but people can do it. I would say just go ahead and have them contact me because I'll double check their membership to see if it's a free allotment or no. If there's payment we need to collect, then I can take that and process it right there. If it's a check, then I can make that arrangement. So because they'll send it to me, and then I'll process it and send a confirmation when it's complete.
Okay. All right. So again, it is over the hour, and thank you so much for your questions and your suggestions. We also have some suggestions that a wish list to see what they would like to see on the chart. So on behalf of Erin and myself, thank you very much. And on behalf of the CAC, thank you for joining us. Like we said, this is a very valuable tool, and I hope that you have found some new tips and techniques to use with your community. Thank you.